Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, welcome back. In the earlier session, we discussed environmental scanning and strategy formulation, how firms analyze their environment and design long-term plans. But as you know, a strategy is only as good as its execution. In today's session, we move to the next stages of strategic management process. Strategy implementation and evaluation and control. First, we will look at the strategy implementation, the process of turning carefully designed plans into actions. This involves programs, budgets and procedures, but also raises important questions. Who will carry out the plan? What needs to be aligned in the organization, and how do we overcome the common challenges of execution. We will explore issues firms face such as delays, poor coordination and inadequate training, along with international entry strategies like exporting, franchising, BOT projects and management contracts. Second, we will cover evaluation and control, how organizations monitor performance and ensure that what was planned is actually achieved. Here we will discuss different control systems, enterprise risk management and approaches such as the balanced scorecard and benchmarking. The key insights for today's session is this: strategy succeeds only if it is implemented well and continuously monitored. So, the real test of strategy is not just formulation, but execution and adaptation. This model shows the full strategic management cycle. The phase 1 and 2 we have already discussed in the previous sessions, and in today's session we are going to focus on the third and the fourth block. So, let us zoom on the implementation stage. Once strategies are formulated, they need to be converted into programs, budgets and procedures. Then implementation is about execution, translating broad goals into concrete tasks. So, programs specify what must be done. So, budget allocate the resources and procedures define how exactly tasks will be performed. So, moving further, when implementing strategies globally, firms must choose how to enter new markets. So, the options range from exporting. Exporting is the least cost method and much easier to do, but at the same time it will be difficult to understand the foreign market. So, as I mentioned, the options range from low risk methods like exporting or licensing to more resource intensive methods such as acquisition or greenfield development. So, each mode has trade-offs. For example, exporting requires little investment, but it offers less control, while greenfield allows full control, but it is costly and complex. So, outsourcing or production sharing lets firms exploit labor and cost advantages abroad. moving further about the strategy implementation. So, let me begin with giving a clear cut definition of what is meant by strategy implementation. So, I have given pasted here the clear cut definition for strategy implementation. So, is the sum of the activities and choices required for the execution of a strategic plan. So, it is the process by which objectives, strategies and policies are put into action through the development of programs, tactics, budgets and procedures. So, strategy implementation, as I mentioned, is the bridge between planning and results. So, it forces managers to consider three big questions. One is, who will be responsible for execution in the firms? And second one, what adjustments are needed in operations, processes or structures? And finally, how will coordination and teamwork be ensured across the organizations? So, these questions remind us that implementation is not automatic, it requires leadership, alignment and discipline. So, let me now introduce you one of the classic study implemented by Alexander in 1991. So, he conducted a survey of 93 Fortune's 500 firms, which revealed that more than half of the corporation experience the following 10 big issues when they attempted to implement a strategic change. So, I have listed all the 10 problems here. In order of frequency, which comes first. The first one you can see here is that implementation took more time than originally planned. So, that means strategic formulation and implementation, there is a lag is there, and then comes the unanticipated major problems arose during implementation. So, while formulation it all looks so rosy, but later on while implementing, the real challenges, real world problems came across. Then activities were ineffectively coordinated than originally planned. Then competing activities and crises took attention away from implementation. So, the involved employees had insufficient capabilities to perform their job. So, these are the in order the main issues come across while implementing a strategy. So, you can see all the 10, each of them are very relevant when it comes to strategy implementation from strategy formulation. So, overall what you can see that the main problems include here delays, unexpected issues, poor coordination and employees capability gaps, and external shocks and weak leadership also derail the execution of the formulated strategy. So, notice that many of these challenges are organizational and not technical. So, this reminds us that successful implementation depends on people, structure and system as much as strategy itself. Now, let us look at the three additional modes of international strategy implementation. One is called turnkey operations, second one is called BOT projects and third one is called management contracts. So, coming to the first one, turnkey operations. So, the turnkey operation means build facilities then transfer to host country or firm for a fee. So, that means a company designs and builds a complete facility and makes it operational and then hands it over to the host for a fee. So, it is called turnkey because the host simply has to turn the key, that means just start running. Thereafter, the stakeholders or the firms that work in the host country, they will start operating. So, examples are there because I already mentioned here mostly this turnkey operation happen mainly at the government level or at the little bit higher level. So, what you can see here, I am just highlighting one of the example here. One is the Rafale jet production deal. You know that Dassault Aviation and partners set up facilities in India so that advanced defense equipment could be produced locally. So, India gains technology and infrastructure in this deal while the foreign firms earn through contracts without long-term ownership of the production facilities in the country. And moving to the second one, the second mode of entry, that is the BOT mode. And BOT mode is one step ahead of turnkey. It's one of the variation of the turnkey operations. Here what happened, that company operates facility for a fixed period before transfer. That means they build, operate, that means for a given period of time, maybe for example 20 years. Then once they earn back the investment plus profit, after that they hand it over to the other firms or country. So, for example, the toll road or power plants in India are often developed under the BOT contracts. So, similarly, a foreign firms builds and runs a toll road for 20 years, collects revenue and maximizes profit, then later transfer ownership to the government of the respective country, for example, in India. And moving to the third one, that is called management contracts. Management contracts means instead of building or owning any infrastructure in the host country, the foreign company provides managerial expertise for a fee. So, a classic example for these are the 5-star hotel that you can see around. So, what you can see there, that for example Hilton and Marriott, you know that these are the hotels owned by local investors, but you can see the brand name is by international brand name like Hilton or Marriott. So, what happened here is that the host gets global brand value and systems and their managerial and technical expertise, while the foreign firms, because the promoter of Hilton or Marriott group, they earn fees without major capital investment. So, what they have done is that they have just transferred their brand value, the brand name and the technical expertise to the Indian entity. So, similar example is the Domino's, KFC, Subway and all. You can see that most of them work in this management contracts because it's actually operated by the local investors, but the brand name and the inputs and the managerial and technical expertise, it will be provided by the main company, the main firm. So, overall all the three modes let companies enter foreign markets without heavy ownership. So, turnkey is a quick entry with limited involvement, whereas BOT adds a long term control and revenue, and management contracts focus on knowledge and brand transfer. So, each of these methods has its own pros and cons. So, you can see in country like India, you can see evidence for all the three kinds of in the foreign market entry by foreign firms. Moving further, let us now focus on the fourth block of the management process. As I mentioned, this one is evaluation and control. So, here this is the monitoring of performance. And what the thing is that this model we already discussed in previous 3 instances already. So, which we saw earlier now highlights the final stages, that is evaluation and control. Here managers track performance against objectives and then identify gaps and control and make necessary corrections as well. It closes the loop, feeding back lessons into strategy and formulation and implementation. So, the main point here is that once we reach the evaluation and control stages, once we see that whether what is the performance, how the firm is doing, are we meeting the already laid out benchmark and criteria, and if there is some lapses there, then they will go back. From there will be a going back to strategy implementation, whether the lapses happen here, or then if something is there, then we will go back to strategy formulation, and again we will revisit the environmental scanning. So, it closes the loop as I mentioned. Then without this stage, organization risk, the firm or organization risk drifting away from their goals. So, let me now talk about how firms engage in the evaluation and control process. So, here one of the thing is that measuring performance, because they need to measure the performance and compare it against the some criteria or against some benchmark. So, the performance measurement is the backbone of evaluation. So, the managers must first decide what to measure, whether it is profitability, market share, cost, etc. So, then they compare actual results against standards. So, if results fall short, corrective action is required. So, this ensures accountability and continuous improvement. So, keeping strategy aligned with the objective. So, I have given the in a figure that showing all these processes, that the evaluation and control processes. So, that means first determine what to measure, establish predetermined standards, then measure the performance, then again subsequently does performance match standards. If yes, okay, fine, they have done the evaluation and control successfully. But if it is doesn't, the performance is not matching with the standard, then they take corrective action. They go back to the performance measurement, and then they do the corrective action in order to address the lapse there. So, as I mentioned here, the types of control, now they need to put into the different types of control. So, organizations can guide strategy execution through three kinds of control. So, one is called output controls. So, it specify what is to be accomplished by focusing on the results, the behavior using objective performance targets or milestones. Then comes the behavior controls. Behavior controls focus on how tasks are carried out, such as following safety procedures. Then the final type of, the third type of control is input control. It emphasizes the resources available, such as the skills, employees' knowledge, skills and motivation of employees. So, effective strategy execution often blends all three, ensuring the right resources, the right processes and the right outcomes. Now, let us move to a very important part of strategy execution, that is called enterprise risk management. In short, it has been called as ERM, is very popularly known as ERM. So, it is a corporate wide integrated process for managing the uncertainties that could negatively or positively influence the achievement of the corporation's objective. So, at its core, ERM is about managing uncertainties that can either derail or accelerate the achievement of a corporation's objectives. So, unlike traditional risk management, which often works in silos, that means financial risk, operational risk, etc., ERM takes a corporate wide integrated approach. So, it brings all risks under one umbrella, as called enterprise risk management, that broad framework and umbrella. So, leaders can see the big picture and take corrective action if it does not meet the this framework. So, how does ERM works? So, one is identify the risk. So, this is often done using a scenario analysis, brainstorming sessions or structured self-assessment. So, for example, a pharmaceutical firm may identify risks ranging from regulatory changes to patent expiration to supply chain disruption. Then the second one is rank the risk. Once we identify the risk, the second step is the ranking the risk. Ranking the risk means once we identify the risk, risks are prioritized based on their impact. That means how big the damage or benefit could be, and the likelihood of, that means how probable it is. So, think of it as a two-dimensional matrix, high impact plus high likelihood risk demand the most attention. So, and the third one is measure the risk. So, finally, risks are measured against agreed upon standards. So, this could mean financial metrics, operational benchmarks or industry norms. So, the goal is to quantify uncertainty so that it can be managed. So, firms use advanced ERM tools. Some companies go beyond the qualitative assessment and adopt financial methodologies. So, one of the widely used methodology is value at risk. In short, we call it as VAR. This is commonly used in finance to estimate the maximum potential loss over a given time horizon with a certain probability. So, for instance, a bank may calculate that with 95% confidence, it won't lose more than 10 million in a week. And similarly, an insurance company won't go and insure natural calamities like earthquake, because if they do it, what's going to happen that if one particular area is completely devastated, damaged by earthquake, then that means the insurance company has to give its entire resources as its claim, because you know that that's a huge amount. So, that kind of risk firms will be reluctant to take, and they will always calculate what is the value at risk. That means in one catastrophic damage, that is going to completely eliminate, deteriorate the firm's resources. And the second one is called stress testing. Here firms simulate abnormal or extreme conditions such as oil price shock, a market crash, or a supply chain breakdown to see how resilient their operations are. Then moving to the third one, that is called earning at risk, EAR at short. So, used by firms like DuPont, it measures how much volatility in earnings could result from specific risks. So, it ties risk directly to financial performance, which makes it more actionable for managers. So, let us now talk about another approach called balanced scorecard approach. So, this is one of the using key performance measure. So, the balanced scorecard is developed by Kaplan and Norton, broadens evaluation beyond financial numbers. So, it combines the four perspectives that you can see here. One is financial, customer perspective, internal processes, and innovation and learning. It combines all these four perspectives, and it remains as that financial results are outcomes of deep drivers. Customer satisfaction, efficient internal processes, and the firm's ability to learn and innovate. So, by combining these four perspectives, firms can align short-term operation with long-term strategy. So, let me now show you some of the evidences derived from the research. So, here you see research examples applying balanced scorecard. So, you can see here the first paper here is published in Journal of Production Economics. So, what it says that it shows how strategy maps can help organization set measurable objectives. So, they emphasize the another study combining scorecard with benchmarking. So, showing how firms can align capabilities with competitive advantage. So, these illustrate the bridge between academic tools and practical implementation. So, moving further, we can also use benchmarking to evaluate performance. So, in this case, benchmarking is essentially learning from the best. So, it means the continual process of measuring products, services, and practices against the toughest competitors or those companies recognized as industry leaders. So, according to Xerox Corporation, because they pioneered this concept in the United States. So, Xerox, who pioneered it by studying how other firms achieved excellence. So, the clear idea here is that we do not need to reinvent the wheel. Instead, we can do a copycatting. That means learn from the best standards in the world, look at the leader in the industry and look at see how they have been doing, and then draw lessons from their success and failures. So, here that means benchmarking. So, this benchmarking means the process, it involves several steps. One is it involves identifying the area to benchmark, and second one is measure the current performance of the own company, and then select benchmark companies. So, simply the idea here is that first identify, measure the performance or the indicators or the area that we want to measure the performance. Then we select the benchmark companies who have been doing well or who are the leaders in the industry. Then analyze the performance gaps. So, as compared to the benchmark firm, how much we are lagging behind or how much we are ahead. Then develop programs to close the gap. The gap is, for example, negative. If there is a negative gap, then develop programs to close the gap, and then implement and reassess. So, this is a continuous process, involves several steps, and but this is essential process of this benchmarking in order to evaluate the performance of the company. So, here are some example for that. Further, you can see how the international evidences on the consistency between manufacturing strategy and implementation, and also there are two studies I have provided here. And to conclude, strategy is not just about planning, its implementation translates strategy into programs and budgets, while evaluation and control keep the organization aligned and adaptive. So, global firms rely on multiple entry strategies, but success depends on consistent execution and rigorous monitoring. The overarching lesson is clear: strategy is only as strong as its execution. Thank you for watching this session. See you in the next session. Thank you.